Because the biggest question you would ask yourself is, well, shoot, if I'm all powerful, then why do I gotta pay rent? No, I'm joking, but serious. It's like your threshold all powerful against like, I'm sick. How can I, why, if I'm all powerful, why can't I heal my sickness? And I can explain to you why. Because we're so deep in the strata, so deep into something else's dream that's also us. And constantly reinforcing the ideas that don't allow us to wake up, because it comes as paradox to us. It comes like confusing to us. But at the same time, our backs, you know, if I'm a Ukrainian, my back is against a wall right now. You see what I mean? That's the power of being everything, because I can be in the Moog right now. Like I could be in South Sudan right now. And I can feel the fire on my back.
The following clip is exclusive content from the University. Access over 300 videos and 26 courses with advanced metaphysics on demand. Jump in live chats with Savan and the rest of the tribe. New materials are available monthly, along with guides and regiments. Subscribe today and save $25 off your first month membership. Links are in the descriptions. Subscribe to Secret Energy TV or this channel for future show notifications.
We're going to, as I mentioned, solve a paradox. But I'm going to first begin with that I have been in a spiritual battle. I will also let you understand that later on, you'll realize that you're spiritual battling with yourself. And that's just all a part about how this works. But, you know, I can stand as a witness for anyone that has been experiencing quite a few different things over the last 2 weeks that's just strong. I'm in that boat. Somehow I sailed into those waters. And it's interesting because I was over here like la-da-dee-da. And I've been caught like this before, and you guys have seen it. La-da-dee-da, yes, we're going into the new year. The new year is March, right? So remember, for me, I'm counting time based on the year of the awakening. Like that when I woke up, that's the first day of my life. So I actually remember those days, which is like December 22nd, 23rd, 24th, 25th, right? And then that whole awakening. And I kind of count everything from that. And so when I'm getting close to those days, I'm like, okay, you know, here goes that auspicious time again. And sure enough, when this December came around, it seemed like there was some auspicious enough stuff going on. So I cruised over December like, you know, okay, I already got my death, burial, and resurrection out of the way. Nope. First, I was reminded, how the hell do you think that you could go 1 year around a coil and be at the same spot again? Like you're going to just have the same experience on the same day, meaning that what we count as a year. And so like I say, so December the 25th of last year, do I actually believe that cosmically that day is aligned with the same time in the same moment that I came into my awakening? Or is this thing more like a clock that keeps needing to be set because we're using this time, and it could be off a few days? And it turns out that actually it doesn't even have that relativity of how we're using day and time. It's more of, are you in complete alignment yet? Because, yeah, it was in December, and maybe it starts to cruise into January a little bit, but alignment is the first is March 22nd, 23rd, and, you know, the blend that goes through there. And so technically, you know, and this is just something that you may come to think about before you start experiencing things, I didn't actually have my transmutation process, okay? And I want you to remember that word, transmutation, because it's the key to all of this. The transmutation process. Let me see how much I even want to talk about that right now, because this reveals the key to time, the key to the paradox. Let me see here real quick. Okay, yeah, that's why we don't want to get ahead. I had to pull up my notes, everyone. Like, let me get the notes. I feel it coming. Hold on, let's get to the notes. So the transmutation process is I want to explain to you as simple as possible. It's when we need to do a checkup on you. we need to basically check every single rack and pinion, every single point, every single part of the organism for its integrity, meaning its strength. And so when it was my turn, I started experiencing every single part of my body, which was for years, let's say, for instance, from the time that I was a child all the way up until now, checking in on that and seeing what condition that is in, and then feeling that physically. Now, I will say now, for the record, that all the time, no matter how crazy things got, except for one point, I still felt personally that the pain was not any real pain. This was the interesting part. And it was because that, as I've confessed, that I had started dealing with some type of migraine that was attached to the lights that I used to use. I finally had to isolate what was going on. And I started experiencing these headaches when I would be going on these long builds, and these headaches were debilitating, and it would be like 3 days of debilitation. So that pain was a whole nother level. So while I was going through this recent death, burial, and resurrection, I was still like, but shit, this is nothing like those headaches, which I have figured out a way to get rid of. So nobody needs to email me about that. But yes, there was something going on. I needed to pay attention to it, but I let it go on too long before I paid attention to it. And then to a point where I was all the way on my knee. The God is on his knee. And then, you're like, okay, I'll take the medicines or figure out what's going on and stop all the rest of the universe and then figure out what the hell is causing this particular problem that's becoming like the Achilles heel to my whole show, if you may. So what I'm getting at is that this particular situation that I was experiencing was checking the integrity of every single physical part of my body and then going red where there was something that still hadn't been solved, whether it was an ankle, whether it was a collarbone. And it was just gradually moving through the body, and I'm going through this experience. And then that's also when I caught the transmission, because all I got to do is just, contact base. Like, what the hell is going on? It's like, oh, shit, did you death, burial, and resurrection? You thought, December. No, that's not how it works. You need to learn something. Like, didn't you sign up for that? Like, yeah, so here's these lessons. Take these lessons. So these processes are always very interesting, because when you get sick, whatever addiction you have anyway, you don't want to do it anyway. Have you noticed that? Like anything that you like to do, like maybe you like to watch, I don't know, maybe you like to watch TV, or maybe you like to try this car or something, buy these purses. I don't know what it is. But when you're sick, you don't want to do any of that. So it's almost like the brain has a switch that is like, I'm not addicted anymore. I'm sick. Oh, I don't want to see any of that, talk to any of them, right? So you go through this process to where it's like now the whole body is going into, get to your battle stations. Basically, shit's about to get serious. Hopefully you guys did everything that I told you to do in order to get that particular part of the organism online. And if not, they're about to test that life, right? And this is just a normal process. This is like why, for instance, let's say if this is a ship, this is a vessel, and there's like a general, the general is going to come across and be like making sure everything is still in line and in tip-top shape so that we can keep sailing. So you would trust that you would have something like that going on in your life, that point where it's like, oh, checkpoint. Hey, before you go any further, we see you're about to go to the quantum zone. Let's check the integrity of your whole vessel, because I hope, if you're leaking or something, that could be dangerous out there. So let's test it out. And, of course, I have full access to every part of my consciousness, as many here do. So I knew that there were things that I had left unattended still. I like to call that technical debt, because it's easier to understand just from a computer level. It's when you put too many patches on stuff and you didn't put the time in to fix the code and to really, really shore up the system, and you just keep patching stuff and patching stuff and patching stuff until one day when something breaks, it's like a domino effect. But again, the benefit of all this is that what is falling is, and I just want to keep it real. So what is falling is the shell of the current body. Okay. So the shell of the current body and the current form of consciousness that you're in is this one that's now going to go through this shedding experience so that we can get to the transmuted part that is underneath. But the shedding is actually a physical thing. It's not like we're iguanas and we're just going to leave this thing on the couch. We're about to go through something. And most of what we go through is invisible. And this is why it becomes difficult to even tell people that you're going through something, because you're always explaining it. And then it looks like everybody's just complaining. And you see what I mean? So it's something that is being felt. And oftentimes it's being felt alone. And I always find that when one part of my system gets weak, especially the physical side, that the spiritual side comes forth with all of its strength. So it becomes very interesting. Even the dreams, like, I don't know, I'd be in Narnia somewhere when I'm sick and I have a dream. It's like whatever kind of ground that the body has, I don't have it anymore. It's always tugging against that. It's kind of like a pit bull with a peg inside of some soft grass. It's just it's going to pull that and just go out into a whole nother region. So I was definitely chilling out in some other regions as I was going through this process and realizing, I'm about to go through a transmutation, because in the transmutation, when you're done, you need to be thinking different. This is like the final test when you're going through a transmutation. And if it was really a transmutation, is that when you come out the other end, you're actually thinking different. You're not the same person anymore. And it was that in itself that was really what the lesson was that was being delivered to me. Was this whole questionnaire and energetic play out of 7. When you change, what do you think happens to the other one? And you can write that down. When you change, what happens to the other one? Because now you've changed, so you're not that anymore, right? And I just want to slow down here, because this is the key to everything. When you change, you're not that anymore of what you were before, right? Because technically change, just as on a core level, is all of what the world is. Because change is, at its most basic definition, just means something different. Something different than something else. So it's like, oh man, I'm going through this transformation. I changed. So what happened to the old one? Is the old one just still running around? And of course, some people who want to just answer this question very simply would just say, well, no, you transmute. You transmute. So basically the old one becomes the new one, right? That's what we're saying. In fact, since we just created a word called transmute, let's just remove the words and go with the feeling. And when you do that, you realize that there can absolutely, positively not be anything else beside you. And you're going through it all right now. You're going through everything. And as you're going through everything, you keep creating transitional points. And the only thing you need to do is realize that you can always come home. And what this message this evening is about how the paradox will show you that you need to be strong enough to be self-sustained, a sovereign. But on the same token, you need to be aware that everything is depending on everything. What the hell? If I can't even take a breath. So do you see how those paradoxes get put together when you realize that you are really everything? So and when you say you're taking a breath, you're actually inhaling yourself. And that all these different things that you are saying, oxygen and all this stuff, are just transmutations of you, just another state that you were in. And then you moved on from that state. Now you can see, you can crack that whole Kabbalistic memory where they were saying like God then looks at itself and then starts creating from itself. That's that PowerPoint right there, is where in your existence now, you realize that you can be everything, but then be in a state where if you get detached from your higher self, now you're the thing. And that's what I want to really dive into, is the thing. Like what you actually become when you separate from the higher self, and how to make your journey to your higher self. Because for a million reasons, like the true accomplishment of life is this. All of this is going on because of that. And what you do right now and in this time and how you calibrate yourself determines whether or not you reach it. So all you have to do is really fire on all cylinders in the experience, and you will know you have made it. This means that in life, you need to find your attraction point. So this was the first thing in the paradox that came to my realization, is just how much you can't depend on anybody. And that it was a real thing, that if you depend on people, what'll happen is that they'll bend and they'll break. They could take some of your pressures. You could beat up on them a little bit, but at some point they'll reach that point and they'll break. And if your foundation is sitting on top of them, you're going to break too. And it's with that I became the most frustrated, because here I am trying to include everybody. And meaning in my mind and in my consciousness, like, oh, wow, I'm doing this for everybody. We're all together. But yeah, I find myself almost not being able to depend on nobody for, at times, the meat, because I'm going through a personal experience, the meat of the necessity of what needs to be done to allow this to thrive, survive, and to become what it is to become for all of us, right? So I'm carrying this kind of stuff every day. You cannot know this much and not ask questions about, like, why do you know this much? Why haven't you been compromised? Why, there's lots of whys, right? You're putting yourself to sleep with it. And again, for me, if I can get direct answers back to that conversation, which I can, it just starts leading to an overall story that you keep hearing over and over again. So that's why these transmutation processes continue to happen, because it's just a continuous phases that happen to get you into the grand awareness of what I'm explaining right now, so that you can learn how to actually sit above, if you wish, all of the programs, the worlds, the manifestations, and all of the yin and the yang cycles, the dramatics, all the geometries and the decks of cards and the numbers and all of that play. If you truly, truly wanted to stand on top of it all, this was exactly how you get there. It would be to come into this total union with the higher self. And then right away, at certain points, as you're reaching closer into this truly, you realize that your higher self is doing all of this to you. All this traumas and crazy shit that you've been experiencing is actually being meshed out by the higher self, which is you. Because there is nothing else. And the reality is that once you start adapting that there is something else, you're losing, beside you, who is everything, you lose power. It's just a simple sleight of hand. It's just like your power is just getting diverted into all of these other variants that you think are not you anymore. And also the battlefield starts. Now, notice what I said. You think are not you anymore. Now, let's talk about that dialogue again with self when you're trying to make this transformation. You're literally telling yourself, you can't be like this anymore. I don't want us to do this anymore. We're changing that. We don't believe in that anymore. So this is like an intercessor then, is what you're doing, because you're literally taking on a higher form of yourself and then ordering this lower form of yourself of what to do in order to get into a better state. And then when you do that, as I said, the transmutation takes place, maybe. And then what we forget very fast is that, hey, what just happened there? What just happened there? Let me set up these lines real quick. Give me one quick second. Okay, thanks, Sean, for spotlighting that. So I'm going to make this very simple. Like, also, if you're there and you're like, what the hell is he talking about? It's like, wow, I came in here tonight. Wow, maybe did I miss a show? Like, what is he talking about? I am going to simplify all this, but I'm just giving you the raw feed of how it came to me through feeling, and then I was able to connect this back in with language, and then we rolled out from there. So this key fundamental of dependence on self is like one of the jokes in the paradox, because again, you and I both know we may call up somebody, look, I need, you good? And on different levels, like, it's not always money, right? Like sometimes you just be like, look, I got to talk to you about something. Like, let me tell you what she said. So in all acts in life, there is this dependency, but all I need you to do is realize that you're also depending on yourself when you think that you're depending on others, because they are you. And if you weren't so busy always trying to figure out what part of them weren't you, you wouldn't be canceling out the true I am all powerful consciousness. Now, I want to take a sidebar for a moment and talk about all powerful consciousness, because there's two. There's the one where somehow by the end of the night, you're being carted off by the police and headed to the crazy house, and you're telling them that you have God, you're like God, and you're as strong as God, but somehow it can't break the cuffs, but it is allowing the back seat to be torn up because you're just going nuts, and you are the all. Okay, so there's that one. And then there's this other one where you basically dial in and you realize that there's actually only one sound. And this is why when the Tibetan masters, they were saying, hey, so what are you guys doing up there? And they were like, oh, we're just listening to all the sounds and making them one. That's what they were saying their technique is. And the lady, that just sounds so simple. So we was like, man, we got to have, y'all been 20 years to do that? And so the lady was trying to first search some other gold, but they had given it all to the lady right then. It's like, it's at that point where you realize that, so let's take this into another context. Instead of just bringing it into your context that you change, let's talk about sound, because sound is changing all the time. So this sound that I'm making now is different from another sound because it transmuted based on the wave or octave in which I'm conducting it. This is man's foolishness, by the way, because that's how it works in science, but it's all one sound. And what you're doing is you're doing after the matrix starts and the world's separated and the masters of the waveform are doing their weird mysticism thing over top of stuff, and your powers are so limited that you can't even see the obvious. You see what I mean? That's that part. Because the biggest question you would ask yourself is, well, shoot, if I'm all powerful, then why do I got to pay rent? No, I'm joking, but serious. It's like your threshold all powerful against, like, I'm sick. How can I, why, if I'm all powerful, why can't I heal my sickness? And I can explain to you why. Because we're so deep in the strata, so deep into something else's dream that's also us. And constantly reinforcing the ideas that don't allow us to wake up, because it comes as paradox to us. It comes like confusing to us. But at the same time, our backs, you know, if I'm a Ukrainian, my back is against a wall right now. You see what I mean? That's the power of being everything, because I can be in the Moog right now. Like, I could be in South Sudan right now. And I can feel the fire on my back, because now it's my time and my transmutation is being tested, of whether I reached where I needed to reach and had things become serious enough for me to contact my higher self, or had I been basically so caked up all the time that I didn't even need to call my power. Now, I'm not saying that you need to experience fire and brimstone and activate your power because that's the only way. That's not what we're talking about. What I'm saying is that you have an opportunity in this life, in this existence, because of the intelligence that is available, to end time as you would understand it. Like just the whole death thing and, where did Bobo the dog go? And I miss him and all of those pains. You have a chance to end this experience. But you would have to bring yourself or rouse yourself to the call. So this brings me to why I was talking about all this. That should be your milestone. Now, actually, that's like the further milestone though. Your milestones, first of all, should always be achievable, but stretched accordingly to push you to your greatest. Like my milestone right now is to accomplish regeneration, to regenerate the physical vehicle, and to use every single version of technology that has been implemented to study and research that until I crack it, like I crack everything else. So that's my current immediate milestone. So I'm powering myself on that, because it doesn't have anything to do with anybody else but me. And if I discover it, of course I can give it to everybody else. But I would need to get it myself. Physician, heal thyself, right? So every time now, and again, I'm still playing with that one too. Like I put that one in play and it's even running out of juice because I was just like, live forever. And they be getting on my nerves forever. You know what I mean? It's just like, okay, this is counterproductive. Let's talk about something else. It's just like, you're just imagining forever with Democrats and Republicans. It's like, not as entertaining. You know what I mean? So, as you level up as an adept, and they start offering you, well, forever on Earth. You're like, I don't know. Who sent you? You know what I mean? It doesn't seem as appealing unless things work out. And so I realized, because of the big part of what needs to be healed in us for us to get to a level even externally that things work out, people want to see they need to see some healing, right? So this all is dealing with the energetic parts of the vehicle. And that is my goal to crack into that, because I know that I'm so close that it's worthy. And that's a milestone, because I definitely need to know what I'm going to be doing after I hit that. Just like everything else, I'm going to reach that point and then I'm going to move forward. So this means that we're moving forward with a plan. We're moving forward with purpose. And everything that is around us and the things that we do, they serve that purpose. And this tunes your entire organism into putting you through the necessary measures that it takes for you to actually be able to accomplish that milestone. And this is what we've learned in many other different aspects of life beside metaphysics, right? This works in regular life at jobs. So this is setting everything in place for still how you need to be built to reach into what I'm talking about right now. Like what is the process here? The process is that you need to mull over the paradox a bit about how we keep talking about that things are changing and we're changing. This is creating an idea that we're moving from one thing to another. We then bear witness. We look for a witness of that inside the reality. We see other things that are different. And then this solidifies. This is like a continuous play to convince you that this is not you. They are not you. That you have your own thing and you are your own self. And it is by this very simple sleight of hand, hypnotic, magical trick that you become removed of all your power. And that's why they were saying that it is based on consent, because the things that are doing this, which is really you, they can't beat you. They can't kill you like that. Like, oh, he found out, let's kill him. That's not what we're talking about here. This is what you need to realize, is that this is why it's by consent, because it's not through force. It's through cunning. And who am I talking about? I'm talking about you. We be conning ourselves into being simple in the reality to move on with our daily thing until something starts blinking red. And where I'm at these days as an adept is I don't want anything blinking red. I want to address what will be blinking red before it starts blinking red, so I can get into a whole nother aspect of life and a whole nother aspect of existence. Like, I'm ready to flush all of these hard-coded aspects of how people think things work down the drain for the awareness that all of that you could, that's just, it's like, I've been living in this world for 40 something years, and very seldom, unless I choose to experience it, do I see anything really different. Like, I see the same games being run, the same fights, the same racial, the same, and it's like, so do you see, like, I would have to at a certain point be like, well, but I couldn't sustain myself infinitely in something like this. I need to get back on the throne of myself. So I had to start really dialing in. And this has, of course, been now 14 years of this, but I want to just explain these recent processes of what's going on. So I had to ask about, okay, so I realized that when you become whole-brained, you see both sides to things, but both sides in a way where when you get a definition, you see also what that definition means. You don't just focus on one thing and then start just going off into that and then only mastering that. And this is in relation to what we can call the medium. The medium. As we've come to understand it, that the state of consciousness in which we need to reach would be the akin to being in the middle or in the kin to being imbalanced. Right? We also know that they say that people who can communicate with the quote unquote other side are also called mediums. Right? We also are taught that within the geometry, within the pyramid, the Euclidean geometry, etc., that there is a 0 point sitting at sitting in the vertex, and this 0 point is basically the center. So everything about, and the sushumna is the center, and everything that we've come to understand is about how to get into the center, and that's called the medium. And so thus we went forward in life, especially over the last 5 or 10 years, just kind of really looking to get balance, and totally missed why human beings actually play the role of medium for the higher power or the higher self. And if you didn't know that you were your higher self, then you would think that we're talking about God. But Earth is the place, because it is the medium, where when you say that there's a higher world, there's a higher self, that the beings that are there handle what they need to handle. It's how they stay balanced. Listen to what I'm saying. Earth is the place where the higher beings take care of all of what they need to balance out, because they're higher beings. So they don't get into the stuff that we get into. They don't fight like we fight. In fact, they're more of like elementals. And when they're saying they're getting balanced, it's more like making sure that all the forces stay in equilibrium. But if you saw this, you would then see if fire got too strong, then there would be this entire warfare on fire from water. You would see a lot of fire getting extinguished. But how that will play out on Earth, because Earth is the medium, is it actually gets worked out. Like, meaning that you will see countries fight each other to balance out the higher worlds. Do you understand what I'm saying? We miss that. It's not that they're just telling you about that you need to be in the center of yourself, and that's where the highest state of consciousness is. It's also for you to realize that Earth is the center. And that is the place where there is a mediumship. Like, let's solve this, an arbitration component. Earth is the place that things get dealt with so that the balance is achieved. So I try to make it somewhat dramatic. Let's say, for instance, I'm high end retinue, higher self. There's other higher selves around, I guess. I don't know. But the reality is that something goes on where I come out of balance and another element decides that it wants to have warfare. Because we're so noble, though, we don't fight. We take care of it on earth. And when you understand the occult, you'll realize that is exactly what is going on in the world. The world is the playing field for the higher forces to balance out their currents, right? Toy soldiers, real men, real humans, lives, situations, elements. And then remember, but this is you. This is you doing this. But it doesn't feel like it's you when you're disconnected from your higher self.